Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about the Commanders offseason, just how some of these pieces fit, what some of these moves mean for the Commanders. So give that a check. Check it out on ESPN.com. So also, I am at the owners' meetings for the next couple of days, and you can see if you're looking at me, like, my goodness, that is a bright light right there in my face. Anyway, I'll be at the Breakers in Florida for the next couple of days, so I'll be getting some updates from Florida and the owners' meetings. We get a chance to talk to Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, etc. In a minute, I will be joined by Ryan Porter, who is Jayden Daniels, one of his quarterback coaches, been working with them for more than a dozen years, and he's going to be working with them this offseason. So I wanted to make sure I talked to him about what are they going to work on and why. And I think you'll like the answer. And it really shows how Daniels' game can continue to evolve way beyond what we saw this season. So also for you regular club members, I apologize because I was supposed to have a private Zoom with you last week. There was a little bit of mess up, and it ended up for a gold Zoom private Zoom session. But I'm going to do one with the regular club members this week, Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern time. Join me there, and we'll get that We'll get that taken care of this week. So again, regular club members, Thursday, 7:30 Eastern time. Join me there and bring your questions, etc. So anyway, that's it for me. Here's my conversation with Ryan Porter, one of Jayden Daniels' personal quarterbacks coaches. All right, Ryan. So the first time I talked to you, you told me about what Washington was getting in Jayden Daniels, and pretty much everything you said was pretty much dead on. So what can we expect for year two? So let's go there. Coming off this year, first of all, what was it like for you watching him this year?
You want the truth? It was, like I said, probably when the first time I talked to you, I've seen this before. It just was a little bigger stadium, different uniform, different colors. I've watched this since he was a little kid. Same thing, just a bigger stage.
There was so much that came to him because of the success he had, like the attention and everything like that. When I would watch him, like on TV, obviously I'm around him, but watching with these award shows, he comes across as someone who understands the responsibility, but doesn't necessarily need that attention. How do you see him handling all of that stuff?
Yeah, he's a pretty private individual, and he's extremely humble, and very grateful for the opportunities that he's getting. He's always going to share the spotlight with his teammates. He's always been that way. And again, I keep telling everybody I talk to about the Jayden Daniels narrative. The dad, Savon J. Daniels, is not talked about enough in his development and his upbringing. And I think that's kind of, forgotten about. And it shouldn't be, because that was instilled in him by him, at a very, very, early age. And that's something that I noticed within the first week when I started working with him. Dad would just kind of sit back, watch the training sessions, and then after the training sessions would be done, he'd come over and calmly talk to him, and give him some feedback. And like I said, this has been instilled in him at a very, very early age by dad.
And it's funny too, because like even at the press conference when he came here, his dad stayed in the back. Like
Yeah.
doesn't happen very often. In fact, they had to
Yeah.
kind of cajole him to get up there to take some photos. But
Yeah.
that's what I say. Like when you watch Jayden, even at the NFL award show before the Super Bowl, there's some other young players or other players, and I don't blame them. Like they're kind of courting the spotlight.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like, again, I think he understands the responsibility, but it's not something that he needs. And so, because I always wonder, like, what's it like to get all this stuff thrown at you at such a young age, but you know him well. I mean, not so much you have a worry, but like, how do you think he'll handle all of this? Because it has to be very heady for anybody that age.
I remember his dad telling me at a very early age, like he thought he was going to be, a DB or a receiver, or something like that. And Jayden decided after his first year he wanted to be a quarterback, and he had success uh, playing quarterback. First time he tried to play it, and then he told his dad, "This is what I want to do." I remember his dad telling me, "He was like, all right." He was like, "I guess this kid wants to be a quarterback." So then the dad submerged himself in the QB world. And was like, all right, this is what's going to be like. You're gonna have to learn to operate, you know, on the field and off the field in a very chaotic and hectic environment at all times. And this is what it's going to be like. If this is what you want to do, we're going to prepare you now. Right. And it's more the mental preparation than anything else. So he's been prepped for this at a very, very early age, 8, 9, 10 years old. Of like, okay, this is what it's going to be like. Everybody wants to play quarterback, right? And it looks really sexy on the Oakley commercials, and it looks sexy on the Gatorade commercials and on ESPN and stuff like that. But it ain't that sexy, right? There's more negativity that you have to learn to endure and embrace, right? Or adversity, I would say, than the public eye actually gets to see. Um, so and that was instilled in him early, very early. And then I know his grandparents had a big role in it too. His grandparents had passed away, especially grandfather, which is very very like his dad, with having a very humble perspective with everything, right? Because everybody gets to the mountaintop at a certain point, but there's only one way down. Like that could be you the very next year. So you have to stay grounded. You have to stay humble.
When did you first see that with him? Like the way he handled, what's the first situation you remember that he handled in a way that's like, that's how you need to be?
High school. High school when he started getting all his, I mean, you could see the characteristics very early, but high school when he started getting all the immediate success early, he handled it exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. But again, too, he had the Daniels family in his corner to keep him grounded. Not that they needed to, not that they had to hold him accountable in any which way. Like he was never that kid that was feeling himself, thinking he was, you know, hot stuff, 5 star, and it wasn't like that. It never was. So
Was there a game like, because again, sometimes you have that breakout game if you're a high school kid and it's like, wow, all this stuff comes at you. What do you remember? Like, was there that kind of a moment, or was it just an overall success where you saw him handle like whether it's after a game or whatever it was?
no, I mean he's pretty much been the most consistent kid that I've ever been around with everything. How he handles the fame, how he handles the adversity. When he has big games, I mean he's the same kid, even kill kid. I think you guys have probably seen that too in
Very
his
much.
when he's played for you guys with the Commanders, whether he's had a rough game or he's had a tremendous game. I think it's just him, you know.
He doesn't get caught up in who he is. I would say that. And I think that's one of the things that's
Yeah.
impressive for someone who's his age, that again, I think he understands the responsibility of the position without getting caught up in what it means for him personally, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, there was a time, and you'll probably get a kick out of this. So Charles Muley, who works in the communications department, number two guy in charge over there, they've developed a good relationship. And so during the fall, like Jaden's a Dodgers fan, Charlie's a Mets fan. So they're having this text thread going back and forth. And Jayden, as you know, likes to kind of needle people a little bit. It's like he would just text Charlie, the Mets suck, the Mets suck, and he'd rip on the Mets. And Charlie gets his text or gets informed by someone from the league or whatever that Jaden's going to be named the NFL Offensive Player of the Week the next week, not just Rookie of the Week, but the Offensive Player of the Week that for that week. So he
Mm.
texts Jayden, "Hey, you're going to be named Offensive Player of the Week," and his reply was, "The Mets suck."
Yeah,
So,
I could have finished that sentence for you. I could have finished that sentence. Yeah, like yeah, yeah.
so what is the plan for him this offseason? Like, what are some of the things that and I mean, how much are you going to work with him, and what's the plan to that you're going to attack with him?
Yeah, I mean, like the things that he does with me is more footwork related. It's the
Right.
groundwork, the foundational stuff that we've done. Um, and so when I think he's back in town now. He goes back and forth. My travel stops for me with the stuff that I'm doing with California Power. And I'll have a bunch of free time coming up in after April 15th, all the way till June. And so we'll get some groundwork stuff. It'll be introducing some new drops that we want to implement this year for him, and it's strictly that. I mean, more that's always been kind of my niche with him is the footwork, the footwork, the footwork, the footwork, the
Right.
footwork, which I think is a very lost art nowadays in quarterback play. Everybody's taking the same drop, right? And they're not timing up their drops with the route schemes or personnel. You know what I mean? You may run the same concept if it's 12 personnel or out of 10 personnel. It's got to be different. And I think you guys saw that this year with Jayden, that Jayden was taking multiple drops. He was taking, flash fives, rhythm fives, taking big threes, quick threes, one slide. Um, so we're going to implement some different stuff like that, just more footwork related.
How can that help him evolve?
Well, everybody's got a year of film on him now. So, they're going to see different habits of what he does when he throws certain concepts or with DBs and defenses and defensive coordinators, it's a timing thing for him. So now, if he's able to throw the same route or same concept from four different types of drops, right now you're not going to be able to get a tip from him if that makes sense or an indicator. Um, and it's just being able to play chess from the quarterback position where a lot of DBs they're keying your drop or even coordinators, or they're keying your drop to seeing like, okay, when he's taking this drop, this is what he's throwing. So it's just to be able to put that in your tool bag, sharpen those tools. And there's just a few new things. There's only so many drops you can take, right? But there's
Right,
certain
right.
right. But there's actually a lot that we kind of like hybrid drops that we mix together. Aaron Rodgers is the best in the game to do that right now. So it's very similar to what he does.
And how hard is it? Because it sounds, I mean, okay, you work on drops, but how hard is it for guys to get that to just to be able to implement a number of different drops?
Truth. If you've had a habit of only taking a certain drop for so many years. See, it's the shotgun era, right? So not too many people have worked under center. So the foundational training that's been placed for him at a very young age is we always trained everything underneath. So you were taking multiple fives, you were taking different tempo style three steps, you were taking back outs, you were taking, different style one steps, left foot forward, right foot forward, square stance, different stuff like that. So you were creating good habits for him early. And what in my profession, what I've seen nowadays is I get a lot of your rising 4-star and 5-star quarterbacks and even college guys when they come in for like, you know, prep and stuff like that, and their footwork, it's atrocious. Like everybody's trying to throw everything off platform. They're trying to throw, they're they're how do I say this? Strictly rotational throwing, right? Which when I truly believe that the linear and rotational world can combine. You know what I mean? Like everybody's got their own unique thumbprint, right? It's
Right,
one of
right,
one. It's like different pitchers releases in baseball,
right.
but everybody's trying to copy a certain style, a way of throwing right now, and that's not in every QB's DNA, right? So I truly believe it's simple. Your eyes control your feet controls your offhand controls your throwing motion, right? Your throwing hand. So what your feet do, your arm does every single time. You throw a football like you throw a punch. So if you hammer the footwork, the footwork, the footwork, the footwork, that polishes what God intended your natural release to be. So to answer your question in not so much of depth is if if quarterbacks aren't used to that and they've created what I call bad habits out of the gun for such a long time, it takes some time. It takes a good off season or maybe even a full year to understand, the importance of taking and learning how to, take multiple drops. Um, and also you got to have elite feet, and that's something that Jayden has.
Mhm. And that's what I was going to
Yeah.
ask you too, because there's got to be something where it's got to be there's processing, but there's also just really good footwork for that as well. How long did it take him to get that?
He picked it up really quick. He picked it up really quick. And but I credit to his dad being a defensive back, and so he
Mhm.
has those genes. I say he has, DB feet, right? But let's not forget, like when he'll come back every now and then and get some groundwork with me, he'll be a little rusty, right? And he'll be like, hold on, we do this again like this, right? So but then he picks it up within after one or two reps. You know what I mean? It's very unique, the style of footwork that we teach with him. And I challenge everybody to really like watch what he does from a footwork standpoint that is much different and literally compared to every other quarterback in the NFL, it's on a different pedestal, like what he does from a rhythm and timing standpoint. And he's very intentional behind his footwork in every pass.
Are there other quarterbacks that he likes to watch that you brought up Aaron Rodgers? Anybody else who kind of maybe in that same area can be a help just to watch?
Jaden's a football nerd, so I think where Jayden just loves watching football, so he'll watch everybody and try to emulate, take a tool from every quarterback's tool bag and kind of sharpen it and make it his own. He hasn't really specifically told me somebody that he just,
Mm.
truly likes to watch. I think he just really focuses on his craft and tries to get better with what he does from a footwork and a timing perspective, right? If you notice his shelf where he keeps the ball is always under his chin too,
Right.
right? Like he does. And he is the only quarterback that I've ever coached that I don't mind the pat. Like if you notice his pat
Hmm.
never affects his dissociation and throwing. I know it's a rhythm cue,
Hmm.
rhythmatic cue, but his pat is so subtle and so small. It's just a boop. Like it's not the where you
Right,
saw
right, right.
your quarterback in the past where he was big and then it
Yes.
threw off his timing, where Jaden's is just a little boop. Like it's really the only guy that I've ever coached that it doesn't affect his timing and the DBs. It's not a big enough indicator to where they're breaking the minute he pats because his release is so quick, so efficient, and the ball gets up and out quick.
Is that something he worked on, or is that a natural thing?
Natural, natural too. And if you notice, the nose of his ball doesn't turn out.
Right,
It
right.
rarely, I mean, it's up and out. It doesn't turn out. When we say he doesn't drag it through the mud, I mean, that thing rarely turns out. You know what I mean? But again, his feet are so fast, so it creates a chain reaction, right? He gets, he gets his feet in place, ball up, out.
And it's funny because when you like, I always you like talking about arm talent, and that which is different, as you know, from arm strength.
Mhm.
And like he has unbelievable arm talent for that
Yep.
reason. That was one of the things that I know talking to these guys before the draft. And there were throws this year where it's like, holy whatever, because just like see it go. Now it's coming out.
Yeah.
And that's what that is, right? I mean, that's how many guys do you see have that level of arm talent?
Rare. Like he's a generational type talent, you know. But again, it goes back to his footwork.
Yeah.
His feet are always in place. He sees it before he shoots it, His eyes are always before his feet. And his feet are always in place and his footwork is so fast, so efficient, it's able to get his, arm up and out. So
Is
and his
there
offhand is very consistent too. A lot of people don't talk about the offhand as much. His offhand is always here, right? Because these work as equal opposites.
right?
So when your offhand is all over the place, this thing's going to be all over the place. And if you notice, his is always here, always, always. It centers him.
This is a obviously a difficult league, and so when you brought up earlier, like defensive coordinators are going to be looking at him. What other things do you talk to him about when you talk to him or when you get him that can help that evolution? Because in how much further can he get with all this stuff? Because
Uh,
like
uh,
again, they are going to be like every year it's a challenge in this league, and it doesn't mean that he's going to go up or down. It's just going to be a challenge. It's a tough league. There's a reason why quarterbacks make a lot of money.
He's just going to get crafty, and I'd say from a mechanical standpoint, he's just going to continue to keep fine tuning his mechanics. I mean, obviously we talk before every game. It's just a quick 2 to 7 minute conversation on Sundays, right? And we'll talk about different drops. We'll talk about what's their base defense, but then we'll talk about is like, hey, start using this drop. He will not use a drop if he hasn't perfected it. So there's about 3 to 4 specific drops that I'm going to try to implement with him this year. And I'm like, hey, you can do it. I was like, I'll show you. I'll send you a quick video of like what I think. It's a specific back out type drop, and I won't give you all the secret sauce, but But he was like, no, no, we'll work on that when the off season we get back home. You know what I mean? Like he won't do it unless he's perfected it, right? So he doesn't want to try something new until he's had time to practice it and drill it. But I think mechanically that is going to help him tremendously. Footwork, right? Good fundamentals win every time. If you're already a quarterback that has great leadership skills and you're a quarterback that breathes life into your team as he does, he makes great decisions. He understands the offense in and out. You can, good fundamentals win every time, right? If you're doing the right things, good fundamentals will win every single time. Um, but then I think from up here, he's going to get even better with controlling the line of scrimmage with his voice, right? Dictating what the defense is going to be able to do with dummy cadences, dummy checks, you know what I mean? To see if they're going to be rocking and rolling, using dance motions, whatever it is to get them in place, to create motions of movement for leverage and different things like that. Kind of like you saw, Peyton Manning
Yeah.
and Tom Brady did towards the end of the year, you know what I mean? Constantly talking, and keeping the defense on their toes and so afraid of being out of place that they had to show you what they were doing. You know what I mean? Because you never know when you're going to snap the football. And they're trying to guess what you're talking about, I guess, at the line of scrimmage.
What was the biggest growth in his game that you even saw during the season from start to finish?
That's a great question. Um, from the beginning, I think sorry, you can hear my dog snoring in the background. Uh, I think early it took him a drive or two to get started. And I think towards the end of the year, you saw, I mean, he got started right off the bat. I mean, he had, you know, I would just say from the first couple games, right? So usually young quarterbacks, coordinators have to create a rhythm for their QBs, right? And you can't rely on a young quarterback to know how to create his own rhythm. And I think where Jayden got good was he understood what he needed to do to create or get himself in a rhythm early. That's where he got better at throughout the year.
And how important then, along with that, to not just you to continue that momentum with that, to have basically the entire staff back on offense,
Yeah,
Kingsbury, both quarterback coaches. How important is that for him, do you think?
huge because it's familiar, right? So it's very familiar. I think that's major for him. I mean, he got a couple new weapons too that he's going to be able to throw the football to, and as long as everybody stays healthy and yeah, I think it's going to be another special year.
It's does it ever get heady for you because of where the I mean the attention he got this year and the not just the attention but MVP votes. He's like people now look at him as a top five quarterback. I mean, it may be because I've covered this team so long that you're not used to somebody coming in and just like, hey, this is legit, right? But was it ever heady for you watching just how much he exploded on the NFL landscape?
No, I mean, like I said, I talk to his dad like every other day,
Yeah.
and no, like it's not one of those like aha moments where you're just sitting back going like, man, I mean, literally, it still looks like the kid that's wearing the green helmet, wearing the green and yellow at Cajon High School, the same kid that wore the Arizona State helmet, same kid that wore the the LSU helmet. There's one common color and everything. It's yellow. So for whatever reason, I mean, there's a yellow in all his uniforms. And he does well. It just looks like the same kid. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's getting older. He's got a little facial hair now. He's getting taller. But it looks like the exact same kid. And I mean, he even comments. He sends me a message on Instagram the other day for our NFL Network game that we have, and our team won with the last minute pick six. And I'm trying to my old and knees are all beat up and I'm like running after my teammates and I'm like waddling around and he's like making fun of me in the message. He was like, making fun of my weight and my knees, right? So it's just he's the same kid. He's the same kid.
And it is funny because that's kind of how he is. Again, that's how he's in the locker room. He and Bobby Wagner talk all the time, but half of their conversations are Wagner's the big brother ragging on the little brother and the little brother
Yeah.
shooting back at him. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
waiting for Bobby Wagner to give him a noogie or something like that. But like,
Yeah.
I just think that goes a long way where you're like that in an NFL locker room and you don't take yourself, he takes his work seriously, but he doesn't get wrapped up in the fame or whatever else it means. And I think guys really, really respect that about him.
Yeah, and I think I know from a quarterback perspective, people can all you can't fake you can't fake it. And people know when you're serious about your craft, serious about the team, and serious about the work and where you want the team to be. And there's a lot of people in this generation, especially now in college with, NIL going on and the NFL, they're look at me guys, right? Like they may get to the office early, but they get to the office early because they want everybody to see that they're
Right,
getting
right,
to the
right.
office early, right? They're the guys that are, in the weight room, but they have the photographer there shooting them benching 325, right? Like, and then there's the ones that don't need that. They're there at the office early because they want to get better. They're the ones there, and they don't care who sees. They're the ones in the weight room lifting weights because they want to get stronger. They're not doing it for views, likes, Instagram, right? Like true leaders and the true quarterbacks are the ones that aren't seeking validation from their coaching staff and their players. Their teammates are seeking validation from them.
And it's funny because we've talked about this before. Like he's not someone who likes to post stuff on Instagram.
Mm-mm, not at all. Not at all. He could care less what anybody thinks. He's there. He's going to keep the same routine, and he's going to do what he needs to do his part to be, to create team success. It's not about him. It's about the team.
So, and
Period.
going back to the footwork stuff. So, just a couple more minutes on this, and then we can wrap up. But when you're teaching that, like, how often would it take to implement a new drop, and then from your like working with him before he can then go work on it his own and kind of perfect it?
For him, he's different. So, like, if we if we if we put one in like on a Monday, he's perfected it by Tuesday. You know what I mean? I mean, he'll walk through it a couple times, and then he practices it. He'll rep it the rest of that day, and then he'll come back and he'll be fine on Tuesday. So it doesn't. Rarely do you see him have any, inconsistencies footwork related. He may have to get reminded if I haven't seen him for 6 months or so or something like that. Like, okay, remember, stay front foot heavy on this one or stay loaded on your back foot on this one. But like his footwork is elite. There's only one other quarterback that has footwork like him that I've ever worked with, and he's going to be the starting quarterback this year for Washington State, a kid named Jackson Potter. Those are the only two that I've ever seen have footwork like this.
So when you're watching him in a game, how often would you see on just like a particular route with him using different drops?
So that's all I watch
Right,
when
I
I'm
figured
watching
that.
him. Yeah, I'm strictly like, and then I'll be sending him text messages like, and it's all footwork mechanics related, like bases too wide on this one, or you opened yourself up, or you know what I mean. That's all I watch all the time. Like that's where I become obsessed with his game tape is just watching what he does from a footwork standpoint. Like I'll see him complete a pass, and then I'll watch a recorded film later that night and on NFL Network, and I'm like, okay, okay, he took a flash five there, right? Or he took a big five there, right? And you just see him; he's constantly mixing it up. He's very intentional behind that, though, very intentional, and you could tell. That's what I say. Watch it when you start watching him this year.
Yeah.
Watch it. Watch the multiple drops that he takes that I don't see hardly anybody else taking. Aaron Rodgers for sure. You see that for sure. You see Aaron Rodgers doing stuff like that.
And when you're seeing it, like, can you tell defensive backs can't get a read on their breaks? Can you
Not
see
that.
it?
No, not that, but I think for him it's more from rhythm and timing. So the best way to describe it is this. If let's say you're a quarterback and you're taking a snap under center, okay? And you're outside receiver, you're running like a dagger concept, right? With seam dig. And that digs, a deep dig at 15 yards with a
Mhm.
seam concept, right? If you take a three-step drop from under center, that dig's not there in time. So as a quarterback, your clock goes off and you're going to start panicking, right? You should be taking a three-step under center if you're running, a hitch, a slant, right? A speed out, something like that. So it's more for him, right? Because then what happens? You panic. Okay.
Right.
So it's more for him to take the correct drop in his concepts. By the time he gets to the back end of his drop and he doesn't have to hitch or he only hitches once, his entire progression, his triangle, his low, high, high, low is in his vision. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bounce balls out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out. If you notice, he rarely hangs on to the ball, right? And yeah, it creates a level of confidence for him, right? But it also is a rhythm for the offense to, stay consistent. So Troy Aikman's probably the best that I've seen is like the older quarterbacks in the 90s. Like, did you ever like, go back and watch some old Troy Aikman film? You rarely see Troy Aikman hitch twice.
Right.
Rarely. Rarely, rarely, rarely. And so that's very Jayden-esque of like what he does. Very rarely. So, I mean, that's an uncomfortable feeling when you're in the pocket and you have a route concept that's going to take a little bit longer to develop down the field, and you're standing there, and you just take a one step, one slide, and you have a bunch of angry individuals trying to kill you. I mean, it's going to get a little chaotic, but instead, if you take the right drop, by the time you're at the back end of your drop, your guys are they're in position to catch the ball now. Ball's out. Makes things much easier to operate, is what I'm trying to say.
So, and the last thing is there anything else obviously your footwork is your thing, anything else with his game that you could help him with, or that he maybe will look to do this offseason to enhance his game and continue to grow it?
For me, I think the focus for me and him, for my focus with him this year would be,
Right,
because I know he does some other stuff with
right.
some other people, is going to be more just from a footwork
Okay.
standpoint. You know what I mean? And then still just kind of be, the old mentor for him and just kind of just talk life and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But it's more footwork, for me and him, and that's always been my thing for him. Is just footwork. So.
Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to working with him again and then seeing how his game takes off from there, because it's the number one thing you got to do is you got to work first, and he does that. So, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Ryan for joining me, and thank you as always for tuning in. I'll be back on Tuesday with another episode, so I'll talk to you next time.